Afro Tales podcast is a part of the Connected Podcast Network.
Ahoy, my friends. Welcome aboard the Afro Tales podcast. I'm your storyteller, Aman Mazinga. Join me as we explore the tales that grew from the people of Indigenous and African descent in the Americas and the Caribbean.
After, come and see me, chef, who will impart upon you a recipe for the story you have just heard.
So with no further ado, let us set sail on this new age of exploration. Pohaha, a Tewa story. Among the Tewa people who lived in adobe pueblos along the Rio Grande, there was once a girl, Pohaha. She had such a quick temper and was so strong-willed that day after day she refused to obey her mother or father. Soon they tired of telling her what to do and just let her be. At dances, when women were expected to behave much more politely and quietly than men, this young woman would often raise her knees high as the men did, or hop back and forth with yells as loud as her male partners. She would not sing as women sang in a thin voice, but would belt out a song in loud and full-throated manner that did not make her many friends. She was not content to engage in such activities as gathering willows and reeds to weave into baskets or shaping clay into pots to be dried by the sun. Things that were the work of women. Instead, Pohaha made herself a bow and arrow and a throwing stick to hunt rabbits and added a great amount of game to her family stores. But although they ate the meat willingly enough, no one could accept Pohaha's persistent refusal to behave as her mothers, aunts, and other women of the Pueblo did. Even though she became impatient with her elders and the rigid ways of her people, she never grew weary of the land. Day after day, she would happily lose herself among the restless patterns of light and shadows that the sun and the clouds cast over mountains and valleys and mesas. At certain times of the year, near evening, sun and rain would create a rainbow, Quantimbe, that arched across earth and sky, so beautiful that Pohaha's heart would catch in her throat. Often she would sit by the entrance of her family's apartment at night and watch Posindo, the moon, make its way from east to west. At all such moments, she would sing a song to Nane Chukiwuyo, the Earth Mother, for the beauty of her realm. But despite the power of the world around her, Pohaha could never feel at ease. She knew too well that her people lived in constant fear. While some men tended the fields of corn, beans, and squash near the Pueblo, other men, women, and children kept watch for the appearance of raiding parties from other tribes that were a constant threat. One day, while Pohaha was grinding corn, a Comanche raiding party drew near to the village. Her uncle came and grabbed her arm and said to her, "You who would not mind us choosing to behave like a boy, take your bow and arrows and go and fight the enemies who are coming. This is your chance to go and prove yourself as brave as a man would be." "Huh?" cried the girl. "I am eager to go and fight our enemies. I am not afraid." I will show them that my courage is as great as any warrior's. She accepted the bow and arrows that her uncle held out to her. From the wall in the corn grinding room, she took a gourd rattle that only male dancers had used before. Shaking this, she sang a war song of her own composing 4 times as she danced inside the room. She said, "Behold, the fierce woman, she am I, the fierce woman. Bow of mulberry, wood I have I. Behold, the fierce woman, she am I, the fierce woman. Arrows tipped with flint have I. Behold, the fierce woman, she am I, the fierce woman. My heart is strong as flint inside me, living strong. My heart is a flint. Behold, the fierce woman, she am I, the fierce woman. I strike my enemy in return. Like zigzag lightning, I strike my foe. Returning, singing a victory song. Behold, the fierce woman, she am I, the fierce woman." Then she took a mask down from the wall. One side was painted blue and the other side was yellow, and it had long teeth. Wearing this, she went outside and danced in the plaza, singing her war song again 4 times. Whenever she paused in her singing, Pohaha cried, "Ha ha!" She was eager to fight. So she challenged the men to match her warlike spirit. At last, putting aside the mask and ignoring the sneers of her people, she grabbed a spear and a shield woven like a basket. Throwing aside her cotton shawl and tying her bow and arrows across her back, Pohaha charged forth to meet the Comanche raiders who had reached the edge of the farthest cornfield. The fight was fierce, but the Tewa beat back attack after attack. The girl herself killed 2 of the enemy with her arrows and a 3rd with her spear. In the heat of battle, many of the warriors were inspired by Pohaha's self-courage. Soon after this, the remainder of the raiding party broke and ran. "Ha ha!" cried the young woman, and the men beside her took up her cry as their victory chant. Pohaha led the warriors back to the village, singing and laughing. When the people gathered in the plaza the next morning to dance in celebration of their victory, she carried a flat gourd rattle and a tiny bow and arrow, just as the men did. All the Tewa people were very respectful of the young woman warrior. That night, her uncles came to her mother's house and told Pohaha, "It is your wish that you become our war chief. Though you are not a man, you are the bravest one among us." Pohaha nodded calmly, saying, "I accept this great honor you give me and the burden of duty you place upon me." As war chief, she would have to lead her people against enemies, protect them from sickness, and treat them as her children. Year after year, she kept the Pueblo's defenses always ready to meet a fresh attack from the Comanche, Pawnee, Apache, and Kiowa raiders. She led the Tewa on raiding parties to keep their enemies on the defensive. She laid out the plans for battle when full-size war parties threatened her people. No matter how terrible the fighting, the woman's triumphant cry, "Ha ha!" was always heard at the battle's end. She became an important part of her people's lives. One of her most important duties was to select the men and women to dance the all-important roles of corn maidens, the buffalo mothers, and the buffalo fathers in the dances that were the heart of the Pueblo life. She changed her womanly clothes for a man's cotton kilt, a robe of rabbit fur and turkey feathers, and a braided cotton sash. Wearing her mask, she would set the ferocious pace of the war dance. Even when she grew too old to hunt or fight, the newly chosen war chiefs went to her for advice and encouragement. Children would listen enthralled while she recounted the stories of her life. She reminded them to love and care for the land that Earth Mother had given them, and to do whatever was demanded of them to protect it. My spirit will be with you at all times, Pohaha promised when she died. The mask is me, she said, giving her blue and yellow mask to her people. For many years after that, people kept the mask in the Pueblo's kiva and honored it. It was the mask of their great warrior hero. The end. Wow. This is another great story coming from the book Cut from the Same Cloth by Robert D'Souza. Pohaha, or Pohahan, is another way you'll find her name. She's a Tewa. Tewa is a linguistic group, much like Bantu in Africa, right? The people of this linguistic group live in the Pueblos of New Mexico. Okay, they're strong, a strong Native American or Indigenous American people. There's a group, especially after hearing a story like this, you might want to check out, called Tewa Women United. It's a multi-racial and multicultural organization based in the Tewa homelands of New Mexico. I like this story. I was looking for a good Indigenous American story for this month, and I was reminded that I had this book, and I was like, oh, let me find one. And I came across this woman, and I just thought how strong she was, how powerful she was, how steadfast she was, and thought to myself, that's my grandmother. That's my mother. You know? That's my Mama Linda. You know? Like, women that don't go with the grain, you know? Those women that don't, other folks look at them, oh, that's a strong, independent black woman. That's a strong, independent this woman or that woman. And think, oh, you know, there's no softness to them. You know, I think about my mom, and I recognized young that she didn't need anybody, but she appreciated everybody's help who helped her. You know, she didn't need my dad or my stepdad to get the things done that she needed to get done and raise her son, but she wanted them to be there. You know, I think of my kid's mother, who don't need me there to raise my children, but want me there, want me in my children's lives. You know, Pohaha didn't need a lot of people, but she appreciated the beauty of her location. She appreciated and wanted the beauty of her people to survive and live and last. And that's why she took up arms against those who would threaten that. Just like my mother would, just like my grandmother would, just like my kids' mothers would. A strong, powerful woman, mentally strong, physically strong, enough to know what they need and what they desire and what they want and what they appreciate. There's not much to say about this story, but that I want you to look at those women in your lives. Look at those women that are like Pohaha, that go against the grain a little bit. They may not be looked at as 100% feminine in today's standards or in the antiquated standards of times past, but are 100% woman indeed. And go out and thank them, appreciate them, and do for them like they do for you. Just tell them thank you. I wish Mama Linda and my grandmother Mama was here so I can just tell them thank you for all that they had did in my life, going against the grain and being who they were. Like I said, I don't have much to say about this one. So, go see Chef. He has a wonderful recipe coming from the Pueblo region of the United States. And until we meet again, as always, have a blessed day.
Welcome, my friends, to the Galley. I am your chef, and today we have a wonderful recipe inspired by the story you have just heard. Today, we will be creating Tewa tacos. Now, what will you need for this wonderfully delicious recipe? 3 pounds of ground beef, 3 cups of stewed tomatoes, 2 yellow onions diced, 3 cups of shredded romaine lettuce, 1.5 cups of diced tomatoes, red and or green chili sauce, 6 cups of finely shredded cheddar or jack cheese, and fry bread for serving. Recipe follows here. What you will need is 4 cups of finely minced flour. Bluebird brand is ideal. 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 1 tablespoon of kosher salt, and a 1/4 cup of lard plus more for deep frying. Now, how do we put this together? Easy. First, combine the flour, baking powder, and salt in a stand mixer fitted with a dough hook. Add lard and mix for 2 minutes on medium speed. Add 2 cups of water and continue mixing until combined. Next, form the dough into 6 separate balls. Then let them rise in a warm place for about an hour. Now you may roll the dough flat or form them by hand into flat circles, 10 inches in diameter. Now you can heat a pot of lard to its smoking point. One at a time, drop each piece of dough into the lard and fry for about 4 seconds per side until golden brown, turning at least 4 times during cooking. Now you may saute the ground beef, stewed tomatoes, and half of the onions in a skillet until the meat is cooked through. Next, you will layer the cooked beef mixture, lettuce, and the remaining onions, diced tomatoes, chili sauce, and cheese on the fry bread, evenly distributing them or determining your proportions to taste. And that is it, my friends. Now, go make this recipe yours. And until I have another wonderful recipe for you, remember this powerful woman, Pohaha, and what she did for her people. And until next time, my friends, as always, enjoy.
Thank you, my friends, for coming on this voyage. Thanks to Art by Chalet for the logo, episode, and shirt designs. You can get t-shirts and other items on tpublic.com. You can contact me on all socials at AfroTalesCast. That's AfroTales Cast. And email me at AfroTalesCast@gmail.com. You may also become a benefactor by simply sharing with any and everyone, giving a thumbs up, a 5-star rating and review in your podcast app of choice, or simply donating on Patreon or Ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com. So until we meet again, may your winds be fair and your seas follow.